Welcome to the video about using opportunities to build your sales pipeline. Before I show you how to set up opportunities, let me show you at least one very good reason for using opportunities in the first place. I'm going to slip over to dashboards and look at a dashboard indicator that has been built to show me how many opportunities I have at each stage of my selling processes in this quarter. If I am a salesperson, I can see at a glance where I might be stuck or where I might be doing well. If I am a sales manager, I can look at this indicator for each of my sales guys and see who is doing well and who may need some help. If I'm the owner of the business, I can start to get an idea of what the company revenue is going to be like this quarter. The information that each of them wants is based on the opportunities that the salesperson has created against his or her leads and customers. Now, as we go into creating and managing opportunities, there's quite a few moving parts here, and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. So watch what you need to, jump ahead past stuff you already know, and come back to review things whenever you want. Let's start simple. Here's an example of the types of opportunities that can exist in the Opportunities module. In progress means I'm still working on closing these particular ops. One, of course, means that I have successfully closed them. Lost typically means that a client has bought somewhere else. Abandoned, well, that typically happens when all we are doing is talking and tire kicking. And suspended means that the opportunity is not dead, it just has to be postponed for a bit. Now let's take a look at what it takes to create an opportunity. As with many things in Maximizer, there are several ways I can do that. For example, here in the Opportunities module, I can click Edit and I can click Add an Opportunity. And I can then search for the company and the contact that I want to have associated with that opportunity. Alternatively, I can right-click anywhere here and add an opportunity. Since I am pointing at an opportunity as I start to do this, Maximizer assumes I want to add another opportunity for the entry to which that one is attached, but I can change the names to whatever I need. Or I could highlight an existing opportunity and I could go to Edit and duplicate the current opportunity, accept the way that opportunity is currently created, and then subsequently make any changes to the details of the opportunity that I want to. The result will be a new opportunity, and this is actually the only way you can create an opportunity that is identified as new rather than in progress. When I create an opportunity, I like to begin in the address book, highlight the contact I will be working with, and then either open the Opportunity Following window and click Add right here, or click on Actions and create an opportunity up here. Either way, this opens up the Opportunities dialog box in the Opportunities module with the correct name of the company and the associated contact already filled in. You will note that the company field is mandatory. This is because all opportunities are attached to a parent entry, which is either a company or an individual, even though you may be dealing with a contact, which is a child entry that belongs to that company or individual. My first real stop is the objective. Why am I creating this opportunity? I can either type in the objective, or I can select one from the drop-down editable list where I have all of my most frequently used opportunities. I then take the time to enter enough information under description so that someone else on the team can pick up my work if I get sick or have to be out of town and take care of things because they can quickly see what was required and what had already been done. This is kind of like entering a note, but without having to flip between windows to see it. I then use the drop-down arrows here to identify the products and services associated with this opportunity and the categories for these products and services. These and certain other lists are created in the Admin module, and I'll show you later how to do that. Next, I go to Opportunity Analysis and select the sales process I will be following. Each process has a series of steps or stages, the completion of which results in the completion of the opportunity. I select the stage this opportunity is beginning at. The confidence rating right here is really just a subjective check on how likely you think it is that the opportunity will result in closed business. The status of the opportunity is by default in progress. The other options, as you can see here, are abandoned, lost, suspended, and won, as we looked at earlier. You can search the database for competitors or partners if they are involved with your opportunity. Note that you need to identify companies, individuals, or contacts as competitors or partners here in the Category field in the address book window in order to select them as such for any opportunity. Once they have been properly identified in categories, you can come back into an opportunity, click on Assign Competitor, put the contact's name here, search for it, and select it, and click OK. And now this person will show up as a competitor right there. These category values are set by going to Administration and Administrator and over to the Address Book Preferences, and here's where you have all the categories that ship with the product. These three that I'm checking here were created as additions to those that were shipped with the product. On the right-hand side, select Default Key Field List, and Status is automatically part of this list. You can specify a sales team and identify yourself as the team leader of this opportunity. Notice, by the way, that if you had selected here Single User, this opportunity will only be visible to you in the database. If I do go ahead and pick a team like the West Coast Sales Team, then every member of that team will be able to see the opportunity. Now, these teams are created in the admin module, and the teams you create will depend upon the sales structure you use at your company. Here is where you can specify a start date for your opportunity, and you can also specify an end date when you expect the opportunity to close. These dates, by the way, can be changed as you go through and work with your opportunity and, as reality sometimes intervenes. Further to the right over here, I can indicate the revenue that I expect to see come in from this opportunity. If it's associated with a campaign, I can find and identify that as such. And then finally, I can specify a next action. By the way, identifying a next action right here does not create a hot list task for you. You still need to do that separately. But if you create a hot list task in Opportunities, it will show up in the Opportunities Activities window, in your Address Book Activities window, and of course in your regular hot list module as well, which is kind of handy. Just one more note while I think of it. If you choose to associate this opportunity with a campaign, putting a check mark right here means that you're really only interested in selecting campaigns where the opportunities address book entry is already subscribed to a campaign. Once you have filled in all the information you have, click Save, and Maximizer starts to show you the ongoing status of your new opportunity. The status bar above the Details window shows you exactly what stage your opportunity is at and whether or not the opportunity is on target for time and process. This number on the right shows you the target age for this stage, and the number on the left shows you how long you have actually been in this stage, which we call the stage age. Up here in my column Setup, I have the field named Stage Age Gap, which is the difference between the target age and the actual stage age. It might feel counterintuitive, but if the stage age gap is positive, for example down here, you are behind the target. If it is negative, such as up here, you are ahead of the target and ahead of the game. After you edit the opportunity, and in this one, for example, change the stage over to here, Confirm Funding and Signing, and click Save, all of the visual information is automatically updated both here and up here in your column Setup. The probability of close identifies the likelihood of closing the sale once any particular stage has been completed. Now that likelihood of closing increases as you move through the stages of your opportunity. You can see this up here. This is now at 85%, and you can see also when I hover on any particular stage, I see what the probability of closing is for that stage. Finally, in this column Setup, the opportunity age indicates the time between the opportunity start date and the current date. For an opportunity that is closed, it is the time between the start date and the close date, and this age is completely independent of any stage age. As well, you can search on this field and include it in a column Setup. By the way, if you want to change the status of an opportunity, you actually have to be the team leader or have edit rights for opportunities. One final note on this screen. While most of the information you need to track an opportunity is right here in the default key field list, you can create additional user-defined fields for opportunities, and that means you can create and use different key field lists other than just the default one that ships with the product. You also have the option to decide who will monitor your opportunities and what they will monitor. To decide who will monitor, simply go to Edit and Opportunity Monitoring. Maximizer assumes that you may want to start from the system default list, but you can modify this as you see fit simply by making a selection here to use the custom list, click Add, and then either remove people from that list or add other people to that list, and then click OK when you're done. And finally, you could choose not to have the opportunity monitored at all. Let's quickly go over to the Administrator module and go to Preferences and Opportunities and select Monitoring to show you where that default system list is created. To modify this list, I simply click on Select Users for Opportunity Monitoring, and then I can deselect any of the ones that are on that list currently, or I can add additional people to that list as is appropriate. When I'm done, I click Save, and I have now generated the system default list for opportunity monitoring. To decide what these people will monitor, I go back to my address book and I come over to Preferences and click on Other Preferences, and then click on Monitoring. As you can see, I can have a notification triggered when I make a change to a note or when I make a change to a field. And in terms of fields, that can be all fields, or I can make changes to very specific fields that I select from basic fields for opportunities or user-defined fields for opportunities. When I'm finished making my selections, I simply click OK here and then also click OK here. The people monitoring my opportunities will receive an email notification when any of these changes that I've put in place occurs. Now the next item I'm going to show you is really neat. As I mentioned, there's a lot of moving parts, and you can simplify a lot of what we have looked at by going to Edit and selecting Default Entry for Opportunities. And by the way, every user can set up their own default entry to suit themselves and the default values they want to use for every opportunity they create. So now let's take a look at how this actually works. If you have a particular type of opportunity that you usually work with, you can begin by selecting a default objective for your opportunities. You can select the products and services that you normally deal with. You could even put in a description if you wanted to, but that's probably better to wait until you see what a particular opportunity is going to entail. You can identify the process that you'll be using, and you can identify your starting stage, usually the first one, discovery and qualification in this case. You can assign a confidence rating. If you don't begin an opportunity unless you have good confidence that you'll be able to complete it, then your confidence rating would, by default, be confident. You can select the sales team and the team leader, and you can even specify the probable revenue that you'll have for any given opportunity that you undertake. You will note that if I click here and re-click this down arrow and move to the top, this is actually an editable list. So if I have other objectives that I routinely use, I could edit the list and add them to that list right there. Not only that, but under products and services, I can actually add, modify, or delete items from this particular group of entries, and I can do the same thing under categories. Now remember I said that this could be modified and set up in the Administrator module. Curiously enough, you can actually do that here in the default entry as well, which is kind of handy. Obviously, you can specify the default key field list, or you could select an alternative key field list if you have set up user-defined fields specific to opportunities. Or you can come up here and click on the User-Defined Fields tab and set default values for any of these items here as well. Similarly, you can come over to Competitors and Partners. If you typically have people that you come up against very often, you could specify them in here as well if that was useful for you or your managers to keep track of. Finally, by clicking on this button here, you can specify who will, by default, monitor any opportunity that you create. Once I click OK, Maximizer remembers my choices for monitoring, and I can confirm or change those choices by going to Edit Opportunity Monitoring after I create a new opportunity. So I go ahead and click OK here. I slip back over to my address book, click on the entry that I want to create a new opportunity with, and go to Actions, Create Opportunity. And look at that. Not only is the company and contact properly filled out for me, but everything else that I had to click on and fill out previously is automatically done for me by using that default entry. Now that we've looked at how to create opportunities and how to actually take advantage of the default entry for opportunities, let's go over to the Administrator module and take a look at some of the things that we actually have to set up there. So I'll come down here and click on Administration and click on Administrator. As we go through these next steps, remember that any changes made here are going to be standard for all users, not specific to you as one user. I begin by clicking on Preferences and Opportunities, and then expanding the plus next to Processes and Stages. Most salespeople have one or more processes they follow to convert a contact from a lead to a sale, and this area here allows you to transfer that sales process to Maximizer. Quite simply, you can click on Add Process, give your process a name, and click Save. Now you can click on the plus button next to your new process, and you can add all the stages that belong to that process. For example, my first stage might simply be to qualify the prospect. And then my experience in selling has shown me that if I correctly qualify the prospect, I have a 20% probability of closing that piece of business right from the get-go. But I also find it could take me up to 5 days to get the information necessary to properly qualify the prospect. Once I'm done with this stage, I click Save, and Maximizer reflects that stage, probability of close, and target age right here. I then click on Add Stage and add the other stages, probabilities of close, and target ages as is appropriate for the process that I'm creating. When you're finished, your processes and stages may look something like this. At this point, you may recognize that this sounds very much like an action plan, and it is, except that in opportunities, Maximizer tracks and informs you about which stage you are on, not just which task comes next. By the way, a default process is usually created if you are upgrading from an earlier version of Maximizer and had a process and its stages defined in that version. When I'm finished with my processes and stages, I can come down to Confidence Rating and add values that I think are likely to reflect how I feel about any given opportunity. Finally, in this section, I can click the plus next to completion reasons, and I have win, loss, abandon, suspend, and I can identify any values or any reasons that might be assignable to that particular action. I may win an opportunity because of brand awareness, continuation of process, etc. I might lose an opportunity because of things like this, and so on. My next stop is under System Fields, where I click on Note and Document Categories, select Opportunity Documents Categories, or Opportunity Notes Categories, and again add values as might be appropriate for what I expect to be doing. Finally, we go over to Teams to reflect how the company sets up its sales areas. As with everywhere else, we can click on Add and give this team a name. We click Save. We click on the North Sales team again. This time we click on the Members tab, and we start to identify the people who will actually belong to that team. If I'm the team leader, I would specify myself as such, whereas everybody else is a member of the team. If I grant everybody else standard rights, that means they can change basic and user-defined fields, but they cannot change the status of an opportunity. If I give them edit rights, they have the same rights as the team leader. That is, they have the standard rights, plus they can change the status. But if I only give a user audit rights, all they can do is monitor the opportunity. They can't make any changes to it. Now, since everything I set up here is going to prevail for every opportunity that anybody else makes, I may want to simply specify myself as a member with standard rights and then identify myself as the leader when I set up my default entry for the opportunities that I create. And then I click Save to complete the creation of that particular sales team. There's one other thing that you should be aware of. I'm going to click on Users, and I'm going to select Christina for sake of argument. When I bring her up and come to her access rights and modify user access settings, I note that she has a check mark here, Modify Other Users' Private Entries. If Christina was my manager, she would not be able to see single user opportunities that I had created for myself unless she had that check mark there. And for that matter, every user has to have a check mark here under Modify Opportunities if they want to be able to exercise any of the edit or standard rights associated with members of the team for an opportunity. Now, just for fun, let's drop out of the admin module, go back to our regular maximizer. Let's select an opportunity that we have in progress, such as this one here that we created, and let's come down and edit this opportunity. Instead of being in progress, we'll mark this one as 1. At this point, revenue has now become actual revenue, and let's suppose instead of $6,000, we were able to achieve a $7,000 sale. We can give the reason for this. Since I'm the team leader on this, I'll say it was an excellent salesperson. And as a further comment, I will indicate that I helped them develop a better sales and service culture than they had before. Now when I click Save, you will notice the actual revenue here is showing 7,000 instead of the projected 5,000. And up here under column setup, you will see that the forecasted revenue is remembered by Maximizer as being 5,000, while the actual revenue ended up being 7,000. Perhaps over time we might discover that we can sell our products for more than we thought, or perhaps we discover that we have to routinely discount them to get sales. Either way, this can result in good planning information. Now let's change gears and take a quick look at reviewing, searching, and reporting on our opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, I set up my column setup here in such a way that I can see information about any of my opportunities that is important to me. I can, of course, search by any column. I can also export all this information to Excel, where perhaps I can do additional analysis that might help me not only understand my opportunities, but understand better where I can perhaps improve. As with any module in Maximizer, I have my search menu to help me as well. I can go to Status, Company, I can look at any of these elements along here that I want to, and if necessary, I can click on Advanced Search and click Add, and I have the ability to select basic fields for opportunities or even basic fields for address book entries. I can look at UDS for opportunities, and I can also look at UDS for address book entries. This gives me a very comprehensive ability to search for exactly what I want to find and evaluate as I review my business opportunities, and how I'm developing in my sales processes. For example, give me all the opportunities for which installing widgets was the objective. Give me all of the opportunities that use a particular process. Give me all of the opportunities that are in the final stage for any given process. If I choose to search by stage and click OK, the first thing I have to do is select the appropriate process for whatever stage I want to follow up on. Remember that once I have specified what my advanced search is going to do for me, I can always catalog this to generate an item that I can prompt for values, that I can click OK on, and I now have something that I can add to the icon bar for quick access up here, and I also have a saved search against which I could develop a dashboard indicator. And that kind of brings us full circle to the beginning of our video, where we looked at a dashboard indicator for pipeline current fiscal quarter. There's one more thing I want to show you, the report that we call a pipeline report. The first thing you need to do is select a process. Let's go ahead and select Selling Process. And we'll choose to look at all current opportunities. We'll let it be grouped by leader. We'll click the Update button over here to generate the report. What we have is an image that shows us all the stages in that particular process, the dollar value associated with each of those stages, but it's the weighted revenue for each of those dollar values that we're actually looking at. So for example, initial contact and pre-qualification, the forecasted revenue is $12,000, but the weighted revenue is only $2,400, which is 20% of that $12,000. Remember that 20% comes from the probability of close that you specified for that stage when you set up this process and its stages in the admin module. When we flip over to page 2 and take a look at the closing stage, where predictably the probability is 100%, and therefore the weighted revenue is the same as the forecasted revenue. And then finally down here, we find a total. The total number of entries is 7. The total revenue projected is 107,500, and the weighted revenue is 82,500. Obviously, this can be a very valuable report to you, and of course you have the option to save it to Excel, to PDF, or to Word, and forward it to a manager for review. There are 4 more quick notes I'd like to pass along to you in closing. First of all, if you were using strategy in your previous version of Maximizer, you will be able to see this following tab for that, but it will be read-only and is for historical purposes only. For everybody else, of course, we recommend that you simply uncheck strategy so that it's not even littering your space. The second note is that you can go up here to Preferences and Other Preferences and Startup and choose to look at a selection of your opportunities when you begin your day at Maximizer. Third note is remember that you can also view your opportunities on your smartphone. And then finally, the fourth note, you can actually track your opportunities in multiple currencies, and you can evaluate the revenue earned from your ops against sales quotas assigned to the team or team leader that's assigned to the opportunities. Now, both of those topics are complex enough that we'll have to generate some specific videos for them for you. I think you've kind of had enough on this one here. Just remember, the Opportunities module is more than just a tool to help you track and close sales, leads, and/or report on your sales activities. From time to time, in your address book window, you will click on the Opportunities following window to see what you have been successful in selling to that particular contact and company, because it might mean that there are other opportunities you could be pursuing with them. So, good luck, good hunting, and bye for now.